After learning about my husband's affair, I didn't swallow my anger. I smashed the house he bought for his mistress. I also sent his intimate photos to his employees and partners en masse. He went insane with rage and turned against my parents' company, resorting to underhanded tactics one after another. We tormented each other for a year. And in the end, both suffered greatly. His reputation was ruined, and the company went bankrupt. My parents' lifetime of hard work was entirely lost. By the time of the divorce, we were both broke. Years later, with the help of a benefactor, he made a comeback. Once he had established himself, the first thing he did was to turn against me. I lost my stable job and had to take on odd jobs everywhere. My parents also fell ill due to overwork. Before they passed, they held my hand and said, "Daughter, it's your parents who are useless." I knelt by the bedside, filled with self-loathing. I opened my eyes again. I was reborn on the day I discovered Song Zi's infidelity. I looked at the glaring lipstick mark on the shirt, silently washed it clean, dried it, and ironed it flat, and finally hung it back in the wardrobe. After the hatred and strife of the previous life, I was already exhausted. So this time I made a decision, refusing mental torment, enjoying the life of a rich lady. I looked at the lipstick stain on Song Zi's shirt collar and realized that I had been reborn at the age of 27. This year, my parents were in good health and everything was well. I was so excited that my eyes burned, nearly bringing me to tears. But I forced myself to calm down. Never again. I must not repeat the same mistake. I soaked the shirt in the basin, squeezed some laundry detergent, and gently scrubbed it. The lipstick stain slowly blurred and faded under my fingertip, until it completely disappeared. After washing it clean, I dried it, ironed it flat, and finally hung it in the wardrobe. After doing all this, I turned to look at Song Zi, who was still sleeping. The scenes of mutual torment between us in the last life surfaced in my mind. Like fine needles, they pierced my heart densely. Hatred surged, but there was nothing I could do. Before marrying Song Zi, my parents ran a small factory, and the orders usually came from acquaintances. It was Song Zi who opened up the channels and helped them turn the factory into a legitimate company. Now, the trading company under Song Zi's name is our family's largest distributor. Additionally, the factory buildings, equipment, and even the procurement channels are all deeply tied to Song Zi. My parents' company has come this far thanks to him. This is the cold, hard reality. So, for the hard work of my parents over half a lifetime, the livelihoods of hundreds of workers in the company, and my own fallback plan, I cannot act impulsively. Can't be willful. Lost in thought, Song Zi on the bed suddenly turned over, slowly opened his eyes, his gaze somewhat hazy. I immediately put on a gentle face and said, "Honey, you're awake." He lazily replied with a mm, then turned to sit up, picking up his phone as he walked towards the bathroom, never glancing at me. The door slammed shut with a bang. It's obvious who I'm waiting for a message from. I stared at the closed door, smiled lightly, and leisurely opened WeChat, found the sales for Hermes, and directly booked a bag. A smart woman wouldn't get herself into trouble. She would just spend his money with ease. With that, my mood lifted quite a bit, and I hummed an unfamiliar little tune as I turned to walk into the kitchen, washing vegetables, chopping vegetables. Just as I was mincing garlic, I heard Song Zi's anxious voice behind me. "Qiao Sheng, where's the shirt I put in the laundry hamper yesterday? You didn't wash it, did you?" I paused slightly with the kitchen knife in my hand, turned around, and gave him a gentle smile. "Right. It's already hung up in the closet." He stepped closer, wrapped his arms around my waist, and squinted at me. "Is that so? My wife is really hard-working today." He was too close, his breath brushing against my forehead, carrying the lingering scent of alcohol. I stiffened, trying my best to suppress my physiological disgust, raised my face, and smiled innocently. "Since you've been working so hard, I certainly should be a good wife. Song Zi's gaze roamed over my face, quietly scrutinizing my expression. Darling, I drank too much at the social event yesterday. My mind isn't quite clear. I nodded, my eyes filled with concern. I know. There are several red wine stains on your shirt. You must have overindulged and spilled some. I soaked it in detergent for a long time, or else it wouldn't come out clean. As I spoke, I lifted my hand to gently smooth his collar, softening my voice further. Honey, don't work too hard. Drinking too much isn't good for your health. Gentle, considerate, without a flaw. After this performance, Song Zi's expression was no longer so serious. He even raised his hand to ruffle my hair. He let out a sigh of relief. I also sighed in relief. I know that Song Zi must be thinking of that lipstick mark. If I don't mention it at all, he would be even more suspicious. The cleverest lies are always mixed with truths. After living a lifetime, there are some truths I should have understood. In my previous life, I was not the kind of person who would be taken advantage of. Upon learning about Song Zi's infidelity, I first slapped him across the face. Then I slapped his mistress, Lin Yan, as well. Those two slaps were loud and crisp. But that wasn't enough. I spent a week gathering evidence and directly sent it to all of his employees and partners. I smashed the house and car he bought for his mistress, looking at the shards of glass and the dented car doors. I felt like a heroine, the queen among women. I hired the most expensive lawyer to itemize every penny he spent on that woman, forcing Lin Yan to repay him. I made sure Song Zi would forever wear the label of cheating man, making sure everyone knew he was a scumbag. He went mad and struck back immediately. He exhausted every means to target my parents' company. Underhanded and devious, he resorted to every trick in the book. In the end, my parents' company went bankrupt. Watching those employees who lost their jobs overnight, my parents felt a deep guilt, their hair turning gray in just a night. This farce made us notorious in the circle as the pure hate couple. Everyone is watching us make a fool of ourselves. In the end, both sides were left worse off. His reputation was in tatters, and the company went bankrupt. My parents' lifelong efforts went down the drain. On the day of the divorce, we were both broke as a joke. It seems fair, right? But this society's tolerance for cheating men is far higher than I imagined. Time has diluted Song Zi's misdeeds. A few years later, he was recognized again and made a comeback. And what about me? I finally managed to get a job at a decent company, working diligently. In the end, Song Zi just casually said a few words, and I lost my stable job. He even arranged for people to harass my parents repeatedly. Calls, blocking the door, throwing paint, whatever disgusting thing could happen, happened. My parents were so angry that they ended up in the hospital. They lay in their hospital beds, still blaming themselves for not being able to make decisions for me. They don't blame me. They blame themselves. In that moment, I understood what I called revenge, from beginning to end. The only person truly hurt was the one who loved me the most. So this time, I can't tear my face apart. I can't seek temporary satisfaction. Upon thinking this, I retracted those swirling thoughts and replaced them with a gentle expression. Honey, today is the weekend. You should take a good rest. I'll make you a big meal. Song Zi seemed quite pleased, leaning down to kiss my forehead before turning and walking out of the kitchen. As soon as his figure disappeared, I immediately pulled out a wet wipe to dab my forehead. Disgusting. At that moment, the doorbell rang. My heart skipped a beat, and my fingers unconsciously rubbed against my apron. But she still walked to the door without changing her expression and pulled it open. Outside stood Song Zi's assistant, Lin Yan. She was also the object of his infidelity. She tilted her chin slightly, exuding confidence. Before I could say a word, she preemptively said, "I'm here to see your husband." I chuckled coldly in my heart, but my expression remained calm. "You must be Lin Yan, Song Zi's assistant. He often mentions you to me." Upon hearing the name Song Zi, Lin Yan's expression froze for a moment. The hostility in her eyes replaced by curiosity as she instinctively asked, "What did he say about me?" I turned around, grabbed a new pair of slippers from the shoe rack, bent down to place them at her feet, and replied with composure, "He said you are a top student. Very outstanding." Lin Yan lifted her chin even higher, her eyes unable to hide their pride. "Of course. I graduated from a 985 university. I'm capable. And I'm still young." As she spoke, she gave me a once-over, and with a light scoff, added, "Most importantly, I thrive in the workplace. Not just some housewife who can only cook at home." I understood her hostility but wasn't the least bit offended. Just then, Song Zi walked out in his pajamas. The moment he saw Lin Yan, his pupils shrank sharply, freezing in place. A few seconds later, he finally spoke with a tense voice. "What are you doing here?" Lin Yan immediately put on a different expression, skipping towards him with light, lively steps, and smiled brightly. "Mr. Daniel, pleasure. I revised that project proposal from yesterday overnight." As she spoke, she pulled out a document from her bag and handed it over with both hands. "I have to submit this to the client tomorrow morning, so I could only come to bother you." Song Zi took the document, glanced down, and his expression momentarily froze. He was certainly not surprised by how hard Lin Yan had worked, but rather that the document was just a blank sheet of paper. How do I know this? Because there was a glass cabinet standing behind Song Zi. Song Zi pretended to be calm as he closed the document, his tone flat. "It needs a bit of revision." After saying that, he turned his body to look at me, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth. "Wife, I need to get some work done." I nodded. "Sure. I'll continue cooking. You focus on your work." After speaking, I wisely turned and went back to the kitchen, giving them space for just the two of them. After all, it wasn't unusual for the boss and the assistant to discuss work at home. I returned to the stove, tossing the chopped vegetables into the pan to stir-fry. The meal was quickly prepared. I was just about to shout, but the words caught in my throat and I swallowed them back. What if the two of them are in the study, in the heat of passion? Then wouldn't my shout have come at the wrong moment? I stood at the door of the study, hesitating for quite a while, cautiously leaning closer to the door panel. There was no sound. I leaned in a bit more, almost pressing my face against it. Suddenly, the door was pulled open from the inside. I almost lost my balance and awkwardly straightened up. Song Zi looked down at me, his brow furrowed. "Wife, why are you sneaking around at the door?" I blinked innocently and replied in a well-behaved tone. "I was afraid of interrupting your work. After all, my husband is busy making money for me to spend." These words were sweet as syrup. Lin Yan stood behind Song Zi, a slight smirk on her lips, her tone laced with a hint of sarcasm. "Oh, the housewife seems to understand things quite well." I smiled sincerely. "Thank you for the compliment. Dinner is ready. Why don't you eat first before leaving?" "What is she eating?" "Sure." The two spoke simultaneously, and then both paused, turning their heads to look at each other. Quite in sync, aren't they? Standing by, I took it all in, my smile unwavering. Then stay and have dinner. Why was I able to tolerate Lin Yan staying for dinner? Of course, it's because I turned around and opened the WeChat for Chow Tai Fook's sales, calmly ordering a set of hardware. The best way to vent emotions, perhaps, has never been hysterics, but rather to effortlessly spend the money of a scumbag. However, halfway through the meal, I started to regret it, because Lin Yan sat opposite Song Zi. Her eyes were almost glued to him. She had to steal glances while serving the dishes, glance at him while drinking soup, and even during the meal, she would throw him affectionate looks. How can I pretend not to see this? I could only pick up my phone and start watching a drama. Song Zi glanced at me and casually asked, "Aren't you the one who doesn't like watching dramas while eating?" I smiled, my eyes never leaving the screen. "I've been following a drama recently." Lin Yan immediately chimed in, her tone laced with superiority. Eating while watching dramas isn't a good habit. You know, I listen to podcasts while eating. I can absorb knowledge and not strain my eyes. She's really something else. I ignored it and continued watching my show. Suddenly, I heard a faint noise coming from under the table. I glanced down with my peripheral vision. Lin Yan's toes were quietly reaching towards Song Zi, the tips of her shoes almost touching his pant leg. Really? Can't you wait just a moment? Must you flirt right in front of me? Do you know how loud it is to flirt under the table? I pretended not to notice. Then, thud. Damn. Lin Yan kicked my leg. Damn. I endure. I'll max out Song Zi's card this afternoon to vent my frustration. It seems quite funny when I think about it. In my past life, countless people advised me like this. Whoever you marry is still marriage. Plus your husband is handsome and wealthy. This circle is like that. There are plenty of couples who play around. Rather than making things awkward, it's better to relax. He wronged you, so use his money. What's the point of being resentful over money? At that time, I couldn't accept it. I felt that Song Zi had tarnished my expectations of love, creating scene after scene of turmoil. And now, surprisingly, I find that I can even tolerate a bit of sand in my eyes. After finishing their meal, the two of them went out, claiming they were going to the company to discuss matters. I couldn't be bothered to expose it. I turned around and went to the mall for a proper shopping spree. Even bought a bunch of things for my parents. The moment I saw my parents, my eyes turned red. I once thought love was the most precious treasure. But now it seems I already possess the most valuable thing in the world. That is the love from my parents. After a simple catch-up with my parents, I was afraid I couldn't hold back my emotions. So I left early. Since it was still early, I simply invited my best friend to hang out at the club. However, before we even reached the private room, I saw Song Zi and Lin Yan tightly pressed together at the corner of the hallway. The two people were kissing passionately, their footsteps shuffling back and forth. My heart skipped a beat. Frozen in an instant. This is the corridor. I was in a panic, with only one thought in my mind. I must not be discovered by them. I instinctively took half a step back, nearly stepping on the hem of my own skirt with my heel. The two people grew increasingly intimate, their bodies slowly inching closer to me. What should I do? What should I do? What should I do? I looked around and quickly grabbed the doorknob of the nearest private booth, giving it a gentle twist. Great. Not locked. I quickly slipped inside, not daring to catch my breath. No, I really am too pathetic. I bit my lip, and scenes from my past life emerged in my mind. Forget it. If I'm pathetic, then I'm pathetic. A deep male voice came from behind. Who are you? I froze. Suddenly turning my head, a man was looking at me with his head tilted. The private room was dark, with the faint light from outside casting sharp shadows on his features. He pressed his thin lips together slightly, his narrow eyes gazing at me with a smile that seemed ambiguous. He's actually quite handsome. He must be a male model from around here. Right. I quickly glanced at him out of the corner of my eye, not bothering to take a closer look, and reached out to cover his mouth. The moment my palm pressed against it, the warmth of his lips made my fingers involuntarily flinch. But I couldn't care about that anymore. Shh. I raised my index finger to my lips, lowered my voice, and said urgently with a fierce tone, "Don't make a sound. I'll give you a tip later." The man raised an eyebrow, no longer struggling. He looked at me leisurely, his eyes holding a hint of amusement. I had no time to pay him any mind, and continued to peer through the crack of the door at the commotion outside. In the hallway, Lin Yan playfully scolded, "Stop messing around. There are people coming and going." Song Zi chuckled softly, his laughter hoarse and ambiguous. "It seems there's an empty box next to us. Shall we go in?" My heart was in my throat. The two of them stumbled this way. Lin Yan's face was buried in Song Zi's embrace, her expression one of bashfulness. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. They stopped at the door of this booth. Songzi's hand reached out, his fingertips already touching the door. He was about to push the door open. My heart raced up to my throat. There was no time to think. I instinctively reached out to brace against the door. His elbow seemed to bump into the man behind him. He let out a muffled grunt. The action of pushing the door stopped. Songzi chuckled softly and joked. "Looks like someone inside is as anxious as we are." My heart was pounding like a drum, and I could hardly catch my breath. A flirtatious voice came from outside the door. "Let's go to the hotel." As the footsteps gradually faded away, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. I slumped against the door, my back soaking a small patch of my shirt with cold sweat. Snap! The lights in the private room turned on. The warm yellow light was a bit blinding, so I turned my head to look at the man beside me. After the lights were on, that face indeed looked more pleasant to the eye. The cheekbones are sharp, and the nose bridge is prominent. This male model is indeed top-notch. But it's none of my business. Remembering the promise from before, I generously took out 1,000 from my bag and handed it to him. "Your tip." The man glanced down at the stack of cash but did not take it. He raised the corner of his mouth slightly, saying, "I'm not used to taking cash." He paused for a moment before slowly adding, "Just scan the code." I signaled my understanding and took out my phone to prepare to scan the code. He handed over a QR code. I looked down and frowned. "This isn't a payment code." He shrugged, his movements casual. "Oh, I grabbed the wrong one." After saying that, he leisurely switched it out for another. Once everything was settled, I opened the door and was about to leave. Suddenly, his teasing voice came from behind. "Was that your husband just now? Is he cheating?" I ignored him, not looking back, and walked straight towards the private room my best friend had booked. Pushing the door open and entering, my best friend leaned closer to me, her nostrils slightly flaring. "Where have you been?" she whispered. Her eyes narrowed into slits. "You smell like a man's cologne. It's really strong. Looks like you just met someone." I was taken aback and instinctively raised my wrist to smell it. There really was a scent. It was a sharp, woody fragrance. My best friend's voice dropped even lower. "Don't let your husband find out." The drink I just had almost spewed out. But I didn't think much of it. After all, Songzi and Lin Yan were busy at that moment. So how could they have time to pay attention to me? Sure enough, it wasn't long before Songzi sent a message saying he had to work late and would be home later. I casually replied, "Okay, my hard-working husband," then slapped my phone on the table, feeling justified as I caught up with my best friend. By the time I got home, it was almost 9 o'clock. The room was pitch dark, and I reached out to find the light switch on the wall. "Why did you come back so late?" Suddenly, a dissatisfied voice from Songzi broke through the darkness. I was so startled that my whole body trembled, and I hurriedly turned on the lights. The entire living room lit up in an instant. Songzi was sitting on the sofa. "Sheng Sheng." His voice lingered a bit, his eyes filled with suspicion. "You seem quite surprised to see me at home." My heart skipped a beat. How could I not be surprised? "Aren't we going to the hotel?" Then afterwards, "Aren't we supposed to have a candlelit dinner and get all lovey-dovey until the early hours?" I kept a steady expression and smiled casually. "No. Didn't you say you'd be back later?" Songzi didn't reply and walked straight towards me. He suddenly pursed his lips, his tone carrying a hint of grievance. "Sheng Sheng, why have you been with your best friend for so long? I've been waiting for you at home for almost an hour." As he spoke, he wrapped his arms around my waist, his voice muffled. "Wife, I really miss you." My body instinctively stiffened for a moment, but I quickly relaxed and reached up to pat his back. He suddenly leaned closer to my ear, his breath brushing against the outer shell. "Wife, you've changed. Back in the day, when I got off work late, you would always urge me, sending messages and calling, one after another. But today, until now, you haven't sent me a single message." My heart sank a little. I chuckled awkwardly twice. I just thought you were under a lot of work pressure and didn't want to add to your worries. Plus, my best friend recently went through a breakup and is feeling particularly vulnerable. So I spent some extra time with her. I'm sorry, my dear friend, for making you a backup. Song Zi let out a muffled grunt, pulling me in closer. My face buried in his shoulder. I caught a glimpse of the strawberry mark just below the collar of his shirt. My pupils constricted, and I quickly averted my gaze. Suddenly, a deep voice came from above. Wife, you smell of alcohol and men's cologne. He paused, tightening his arms around my waist, his tone half playful, half serious. Wife, you wouldn't have a change of heart, would you? What's with Song Zi's dog-like nose? Still trying to turn the tables. I remained unfazed. Yeah, I went shopping with my best friend today. I actually wanted to buy you a perfume, but after smelling it, I felt it wouldn't suit you. So I didn't buy it. Song Zi released his hand from my waist and took half a step back, staring straight at me. Oh really? Then what perfume is this? I met his gaze and smiled. It's Road to the Underworld by Artisan. Fortunately, my best friend casually mentioned the brand. Otherwise, I would have been caught. Song Zi slightly squinted and smiled back. I'll go try it out at the counter someday. Just in time. I want to change my perfume. He finished speaking, then suddenly changed the subject. By the way, dear, there's a banquet tomorrow night. Will you come with me? A wave of indescribable unease surged within me, but I still nodded. Sure. The next evening, I walked into the banquet hall, arm in arm with Song Zi. A glance revealed Lin Yan walking towards him. She wore a long black dress. It was not surprising for her to be here as Song Zi's assistant. Song Zi held a glass of wine and began to greet, clink glasses, and chat with each of his acquaintances. Lin Yan stood half a step away from him, occasionally interjecting a few comments, her tone both professional and confident. The two of them had a remarkable rapport. And what about me? I stood on the other side of Song Zi, like a vase. As time passed, my face started to ache from smiling. Taking advantage of the moment while Song Zi was chatting happily with the CEO, I quietly loosened my grip on his arm and found a corner to sit down. Someone nearby was discussing me. Is that Mrs. Song? She does look quite nice. But what a pity she's just a pretty face. Isn't it so? You see her sitting there all alone, while her husband is chatting passionately with his assistant and others. She doesn't even have a chance to interject. So, you see, women really need to have their own careers. Being just a housewife ends up making you nothing more than a decoration. I listened, raised my wine glass, took a sip, feeling a bit downcast. Actually, I've never had any grand ambitions. After graduating from university, I married and comfortably settled down at home as a wealthy lady. My parents pampered me, and my husband adored me. Their money was enough for me to live lavishly for a lifetime. Why should I strive? I have no business acumen. Even if I were to live my life over again, what would change? Those workplace skills and business acumen aren't something that can magically appear after being reborn. I thought I had long since come to terms with it and accepted my fate. But watching Song Zi and Lin Yan standing side by side from a distance still made me feel a bit dazed. It's not lousy. It is a deeper, indescribable sense of loss. As if I were trapped outside by an entire wall. I suddenly wanted to escape from here. I walked out of the hall and wandered alone in the back garden for a long time. The night was dark, with the moonlight laying coldly on the gravel path. Just as my thoughts were in disarray, I instinctively looked up and saw two silhouettes tightly intertwined. It was Song Zi and Lin Yan again. My footsteps came to an abrupt halt, and I instinctively stepped aside to hide behind a large tree, my back pressed tightly against the rough bark, not daring to breathe. Lin Yanjiao's playful voice came through. Mr. Song, you're so annoying. Song Zi let out a low laugh, his voice hoarse and ambiguous. Since you're seeking excitement, Let's see it through to the end. I rolled my eyes. The old cliché has worn thin. The two of them were sweet on each other for a while longer before finally leaving the garden, vanishing at the end of the path. I leaned against the tree, taking quite a while to regain my composure. Turning around, I found someone standing in front of me. He leaned against another tree, lazily yet with an air of sophistication. It was the man I had encountered at the clubhouse last time. He was wearing a tailored suit, and the fabric and texture were clearly expensive. Noticing my scrutinizing gaze, the corner of his mouth curved into a smile, his tone playful. "Why is it that every time I see you, your husband is cheating?" I raised my chin and smiled slightly. "Why is it that every time I see you, you're so concerned about my husband?" He lowered his head and chuckled. "You certainly don't hold back when it comes to others." I looked at him with some confusion. This was said as if we were quite familiar with each other. "Do we know each other?" He did not answer the question. He just lowered his head and pulled out a business card from the inner pocket of his suit, handed it to me with an unusually serious tone. "I know a very professional lawyer. If you need a divorce, you can contact me." I took it, glancing down at it. Gu Sheng. That name sounds a bit familiar. It seems I've seen it in some financial report. His wrist is sharp, and people in the industry call him a financial genius. I looked up at him and shook my head. "Thank you, but I don't need it." Gu Sheng raised an eyebrow. "Even if your husband gets dirty, you won't get a divorce." I nodded slightly and spoke softly. I don't need to." After saying that, in front of Gu Sheng, I tore the business card to pieces. Then I lifted my head and looked at Gu Sheng again. The moonlight fell on his face, and he looked at me with a complicated expression. I didn't understand why he was curious about my affairs. Perhaps it was a momentary whim, or maybe it was something else entirely. But I have no desire to investigate, nor to pay it any mind. I retracted my gaze, clenching the crumpled paper in my palm, and turned to leave. Behind me came Gu Sheng's voice, not big, yet every word is clear. "Miss Chiao, I have no intention of interfering with your choice. But as a man myself, I want to tell you men who cheat have no heart." "How does he know my last name is Chiao?" I paused for a moment. "You think you're trying to salvage a marriage, but he might just be scheming how to push you out. Clinging on is the most powerless thing to do." The crumpled paper I gripped tightly turned white at the knuckles, because I didn't know whether what he said was his reasoning or the truth I would have to face sooner or later. I didn't look back, nor did I speak. The moonlight stretches my shadow long. In fact, I'm not trying to hold on to the marriage. I just don't want to repeat the same mistakes. I have the chance for rebirth, but I am not fully prepared. This society has such a high tolerance for cheating men. And over time, who still remembers what they have done? What if he comes back to take revenge on me? Or on my parents? What should I do? I don't know. I really don't know. The only thing I can do is to continue to endure. Endure until I find that right path. I tossed the scraps of paper in my hand and walked step by step back to the hall. It was only towards the end of the banquet that I saw Songzi again. He had drunk a lot and was walking somewhat unsteadily. Behind me, Lin Yan was jogging in her high heels to catch up. The moment he saw me, Songzi's eyes lit up for a brief second. He rushed towards me in a few quick strides, stumbling slightly, and his head went straight down onto my shoulder. His voice sticky as he said, "Wife, let's go home." The corner of my mouth twitched. I didn't even know who had just been kissing someone else in the garden. Now I finally know to call her my wife. I struggled to support his body, but my shoulder was still crushed under his weight and hurt like hell. Lin Yan immediately leaned forward, carefully placing Song Zai's other arm over her shoulder. It took both of us a great effort to drag and pull Song Zai to the door. While waiting for the bus, Lin Yan suddenly spoke up, her tone light and airy. "Sister-in-law, I heard you're just an ordinary university graduate." I nodded, not responding. The smile on her face deepened. Oh really? I thought since Mr. Song is from a 985 university, at least his wife would be from a 211 university. But come to think of it, it's not surprising. In my 985 school, the girls in class are all busy working hard for their careers, putting in overtime, taking exams, getting promotions so busy that no one is really aiming to be a housewife, although everyone has their own ambitions. But these successful men, they might not necessarily be settled down. Sister-in-law. You should keep an eye on Mr. Decide. Song. She leaned in a little closer, lowering her voice. These days, men really like to connect with those who resonate on the same frequency. Resonate on the same frequency. She's saying that I'm not good enough for Song Z. I know she is scheming against me. But I didn't get angry. Just gazed at her faintly. I trust Song Z. As soon as the words left my mouth, the car stopped at the door, and the driver quickly opened the door to the back seat. I supported Song Z and got into the car without looking back. The car slowly pulled away, and I gazed out of the window at the passing city, my eyes feeling a bit dry. After getting home, I casually tossed Song Z onto the bed. He groaned softly, turned over, hugged the blanket, and continued to sleep, mumbling something indistinctly. I turned and walked to the balcony in the living room, leaning on the railing with both hands, staring off into the distance, lost in thought. Gu Sheng's words echoed in his mind. A cheating man is heartless. There is some truth to this statement. But truth is one thing, and reality is another. The phone suddenly rang. It was my mom calling. Her tone was anxious. Sheng. You have to tell Mom truthfully, has Songzi cheated? I was taken aback. My fingers instinctively tightened around the phone. I instinctively retorted. What are you saying? Mom and Dad. We're doing just fine. Mom sighed. Sheng. I've seen the video. And it's absolutely true. A video. What video? The phone vibrated. I clicked it open. It was the surveillance footage from that day at the club. My hands started to shake. Why did my parents receive this surveillance footage? Who sent this? Why send it to them? Mom's voice choked up for a moment. Sheng. I've had this video authenticated. It's real. You should get a divorce. Sheng. A man who cheats is not worth keeping. And I can't watch you suffer this kind of humiliation. On the other end of the line, Dad seemed to be nearby, too. I heard him softly say, talk to our girl nicely. Don't rush. But how could Mom hold back? With a hint of a cry in her voice, she said, Sheng, you are the one we've spoiled since you were little. We can't bear to see you suffer even a little. Now being let down like this, you can't continue to make things hard on yourself. My nose tinged with bitterness, and my eyes instantly turned red. But I still pretended to be relaxed. Okay, Mom. I know what I'm doing. You don't need to worry. Just get some sleep early. I'll handle this. Sheng. Mom. Really. Trust me. I added a hint of a whine to my voice. Your daughter isn't a little kid anymore. Mom was silent for a long time before finally saying, then take good care of yourself. And then she hung up the phone. The phone screen dimmed. I stood on the balcony, the night breeze tousling my hair uncontrollably. My chest felt heavy and stifled. I don't know how long I stood there. I dragged my weary body into the spare bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. The quilt is cold, and I curl up into a ball. My mind is filled with images from my past life. My parents' hair turned white overnight. The empty office building. The backs of employees leaving one by one. Mom and Dad lay on the hospital bed, holding my hand and saying, it's our fault for not being capable. Lost in thought. My phone vibrated again. It was a friend request. The note said, I am Gu Sheng. My half-closed eyes suddenly widened. A thought flashed through my mind. Surveillance. I immediately clicked to approve and messaged. Did you send the surveillance to my parents? Yes. Why? I want you to get a divorce. I don't want you to waste your time on the wrong man. I am somewhat bothered by this man's presumptuousness. It seems to have nothing to do with you. He replied quickly. For now. It has nothing to do with me. But who knows in the future? What a meddlesome man. I deleted him right away. I'm tired. Let's talk about it tomorrow. But no matter how much I lay down, I just can't fall asleep. To distract myself, I clicked on a certain book, and then I scrolled upon a post. I cheated. But I want to blame my wife. What should I do? This post went viral. The poster added, I don't want my reputation damaged. I want her to make a mistake and then get a divorce. So she won't take much of the assets. After all, she's a housewife, and I've been the one making money all these years. There were many replies below. You should first suspect her of cheating. Let her slowly get caught up in public opinion. And everyone will think it's her who has wronged you first. There are few innocent people in the world. So you could suddenly check her phone. As long as you find something. Even if it's just slightly ambiguous chat records. And you embellish it a little. She won't be able to explain herself. Anyway, she's just a thoughtless housewife who's long disconnected from society. Many people will nitpick women's behavior, judging it line by line. With just a little guidance, you might be able to smear your wife's reputation. Reading the comments left me chilled. Indeed. Cheating men are the best at shifting blame. I trembled slightly. It's not because it's cold, but because this account is Song Zi's alternate account. I scroll down. I come across his interactions with others. Someone asked him, Is there something unusual about your wife? The poster replied, I actually have some doubts. I smelled men's perfume on her. The person responded, Then pay more attention. But don't give yourself away. The poster. Thank you. I've also noticed that she's been overly understanding lately. Maybe there's something wrong with her. Otherwise, with her personality, she would have already quarreled with me. I deliberately took her to a dinner party today, and then ignored her. But she didn't get angry at all. I think of the various events that have occurred recently, and a wave of fear surges in my heart. I once thought that in this life, if I just turn a blind eye and keep quiet without causing a scene, I could live peacefully and steadily. I believed that as long as I didn't seek trouble, trouble wouldn't come looking for me. But Gu Sheng was right. What would happen if I hadn't come across this post today? Would I continue to play the role of a virtuous wife and mother, only to be stamped with a label first? Suddenly, the door opened. I looked up, gasping in surprise. Instinctively hiding my phone beneath the blanket, Song Zi stood at the door, his brows slightly furrowed. Wife, why are you sleeping in the guest room? I pretended to be calm and forced a smile. I was watching a video, afraid the sound would disturb you. He walked over and plopped down on the edge of the bed, casually snatching the phone out of my hands. Then he turned his head to look at me, his face filled with grievance. Wife, you used to make me hangover soup. I was taken aback. Hangover soup. Yes, I used to make it for him, because at that time I still loved him. At that time, I felt he was my entire world. After hating and hurting each other for so long, I almost forgot. My expression quickly returned to normal, and I calmly explained, Honey, I've noticed you haven't been sleeping well for days, so I didn't want to wake you. Song Zi rested his head on my shoulder, affectionately nuzzling. Wife, but I want to drink. I nodded and gently patted his back. Then I'll go boil some now. Saying that, I got up and left the bedroom. The moment I walked out of the door, I caught a glimpse of Song Zi opening my phone. I didn't look back, nor did I stop. After scrolling to that post, I immediately deleted all chat records that might cause misunderstandings. He couldn't pin the blame on me for now. But at this moment, I completely understood. We can't pretend to be in love anymore. Even if I do nothing, even if I disguise myself as the perfect wife, we will definitely get a divorce. Because from the very beginning, he never intended for this marriage to end well. I originally thought that as long as this life wasn't like my last, I would be able to sidestep these issues. But the truth is, the subjects of avoidance not only do not disappear, they also change their faces, appearing before you time and again, forcing you to respond. And the subject is, first, how to withdraw completely from this marriage while protecting myself and my parents. Secondly, how to become someone who cannot be easily manipulated. I can no longer run away. In the following days, I hardly slept a single good night. Despite my poor mood, I began to gather evidence. I have all the evidence of Song Zi's infidelity stored in an encrypted file on another system of my phone. That afternoon, my mom called me to come home for dinner. I agreed without thinking much about it. Halfway through the meal, my dad suddenly spoke up. Sheng. Dad is planning to sell the company. The chopsticks in my hand clattered onto the table. How can you bear to do that? My voice trembled a bit. That's your years of hard work. Mom put down her chopsticks, reached over to pat my head, and smiled. Silly daughter. You are our true labor of love. This sentence broke my tears completely. Dad pushed the tissues in front of me, his voice firm. Your mom and I have thought about this for a long time. We know that your awareness of Song Zi's infidelity without divorce is definitely because our two companies have deep cooperation. You are worried it will affect us, and that you might implicate Mom and Dad. I bit my lip and said nothing. So, I'm planning to sell it. Dad's tone lightened. There's a buyer with a strong background. Song Zi can't touch them. Those employees won't be unemployed. The new company will take them all in, with better benefits. Mom and Dad don't have any worries now. After he finished speaking, he looked at me, his gaze gentle. My daughter, an unhappy marriage is better left behind. We no longer lack money. If you divorce, Mom and Dad will take care of you. Mom nodded along next to him. That's right. Mom and Dad can support you. It's not like we can't afford it. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. No matter what I tried to stop them. It had been a long time when I choked on my words and said, Mom, Dad, it's still not the right time. Just wait a little longer. Dad and Mom exchanged a glance and finally nodded heavily. That afternoon, I went to see a lawyer. After all, divorce can't rely solely on assumptions and guesses. I heard a lot from the lawyer and felt enlightened. In order to grasp more effective information, I contacted a private detective again. This time, I chose not to vent my emotions. In the evening, I opened that post again. One netizen suggested, you can say you're on a business trip, then hire a private detective to follow her and take some ambiguous photos. With a tricky angle, it would be easy to tarnish her reputation. Song Zi replied, this method is quite good. Just in time. I have to go on a business trip for a few days starting tomorrow. I stared at the screen, a smile curving at the corners of my mouth. Sure enough, that night, Song Zi returned home, casually saying while changing his shoes, I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. Probably for a week. Honey, I'll bring you a gift when I come back. I smiled happily, because I was also looking forward to his trip. Lin Yan, as his assistant, would naturally accompany him. The more time they spent together, the more evidence I gathered. Naturally, I had arranged for a private detective to follow them. I just didn't expect that. Lin Yan didn't go. Just as I was puzzled, Lin Yan unexpectedly came knocking at my door. She was accompanied by her mother-in-law. She walked naturally into the house, sat down on the sofa, and looked up at me. Qiao Sheng, you should get a divorce. She paused for a moment, her hand resting on her small belly. I'm pregnant with Song Zi's child. I stayed silent, while my mother-in-law immediately rushed to Lin Yan's side, angrily scolding me. You worthless creature who can't have children. If you know what's good for you, you'd hurry up and divorce my son. The air was silent for a moment. I looked at the two women in front of me, feigning surprise as I covered my mouth, and retorted, you mean to say, you're pregnant with my husband's child? Lin Yan scoffed, raised her chin, and looked at me as if I were an idiot. Yeah. Can't you understand human speech? My mother-in-law mockingly chimed in. You dead woman. having taken my son for so many years. It's time you made way. I blinked. Then I took out my phone and dialed 110. Hello. Is this the police? My voice was calm. I suspect my husband is engaged in illegal activities. Lin Yan and her mother-in-law's smiles froze. What nonsense are you talking about? Lin Yan stood up abruptly. Are you out of your mind? The mother-in-law scolded while pointing her finger at me. I ignored them and continued speaking into my phone. Please come as soon as possible. After hanging up the phone, I still looked at the two of them with a sincere expression. Don't worry. Even though Songzi is my husband, I won't shield him. Everyone is equal before the law. The police arrived quickly, and the three of us were taken to the station. In the mediation room, I pointed at Lin Yan, my voice trembling. Officer, she said, she's pregnant with my husband's child. I'm afraid of pain. So my husband has always been reluctant to let me have children, but I never expected that in order to have a child of our own, he would actually let another woman bear the child for me. This is against the law. I had a serious expression on my face. Don't worry. I absolutely won't cover for my husband, even if he goes in. I'll admit it. In front of the law, there's no room for sentiment. Just after saying that, Lin Yan's face turned pale, her voice sharp and piercing. What are you talking about? Are you pretending to be stupid? The mother-in-law rushed up as well, shouting, Stop slandering. When did my son you? In the end, it was the police who stopped their bickering. Lin Yan felt a bit at a loss and started frantically calling Songzi. Once, twice, 3 times. No one ever answered. Her face grew increasingly pale, while her mother-in-law beside her was anxiously stamping her feet. I sat calmly to the side, admiring their expressions. Of course, I knew why Songzi wasn't answering the phone. After all, how could a cheating man only cheat once? Lin Yan couldn't get through on the phone, and was forced to explain her clandestine relationship with Songzi. The police officer handled the matter with professionalism, as usual taking notes. I curled my lips into a faint smile. The lawyer had told me notes are the best evidence. And today, when the 3 of us were taken away by the police, the entire neighborhood witnessed it. Gossip has always spread widely. This time, it's got nothing to do with me. Not long after leaving the police station, Songzi called. His voice was filled with uncontrollable anger. Xiao Sheng, have you lost your mind? You even made a scene at the police station. Are you sick? I chuckled lightly, not pretending anymore. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. Then, the facade was completely torn away, the voice fierce and urgent. Xiao Sheng, you've been pretending all along, haven't you? I knew it before. You would go crazy with jealousy at the slightest hint of trouble. And now you know everything, and still put on an act. You must have cheated yourself. That's why you've been pretending all this time. You really know how to label me. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him, and simply stated my intention. Let's get a divorce. Songzi was in a hurry. Why should I listen to you? You've hidden it so well. I never noticed you were this kind of person. I didn't argue with him. I will sue in court. After speaking, I hung up the phone. The next time I saw Songzi was at the divorce court. He has become quite haggard. His affair with Lin Yan slowly spread through the circle, though it does not impact him as significantly as in his previous life. It will somewhat affect his career. This also deepened the conflict between him and Lin Yan. But it has nothing to do with me. In court, I presented a lot of evidence. The most important piece was the transcript of Lin Yan admitting the nature of their relationship in her own words. The lawyer said, "The transcript is the best evidence. Black and white on paper, with a stamp." However, reality is not like a TV drama. A cheating man is unlikely to be ordered to leave with nothing. But in terms of asset division, I still ended up with the vast majority. I am very content. As I walked out the courthouse doors, the sun warmly fell upon me. I felt an unprecedented sense of ease. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a familiar figure. Gu Sheng walked towards me, breaking into a smile. Congratulations on your divorce. However, if you let me arrange a lawyer, you might end up with more of the assets. I chuckled softly. In that case, I would owe you a favor. He tilted his head slightly and lowered his voice. But I like that you owe me a favor. I shrugged, not responding. Because I won't place my hopes in others anymore. Only when you can rely on yourself can it last the longest. Gu Sheng looked at me, his expression becoming more serious. Since you've divorced, can we add each other back to our contacts? I nodded, took out my phone, and conveniently opened the QR code. Having a business genius as a friend is still great, even if it doesn't lead to expanding networks. Chao Sheng. He suddenly called my name. I looked up and met his gaze. The sunlight fell on his shoulders, casting a thin golden outline around him. He looked serious. Congratulations. For a while after that, I was focused on preparing for my study abroad, because I realized that only by becoming an irreplaceable person would I not be eliminated. I majored in English in college, and the job market was not very good. Back then, I was indulging in pleasures and idly passing the days, thinking that marrying a good person and living a stable life would be enough, so I chose to plunge into the warm waters of marriage, enjoying a life of comfort with someone else providing for me. The laziness I once stole is destined to be paid back with double the effort. In fact, what truly made me resolute, it's not entirely a rebirth, nor is it solely Song Zi's betrayal and ruthlessness. That day, after leaving the law firm, the lawyer took me to the courthouse. Some trials are open to the public, just in time for a divorce case, where both parties are battling for custody of their child. The woman, in tears, recounts her understanding and love for the child. Every word she utters comes from the depths of her heart. Yet the man remained cold and indifferent. I still remember his disdainful tone. Sister, what good is love? The child is only 10 years old. Raising a child requires a lot of money. What will you use to support them? The woman's face turned beet red, her voice trembling. I can set up a stall. I can work. I will always find a way to make a living. The man let out a cold laugh. So what? The jobs you mention can be replaced at any time. But my job is different. Even with the rapid development of AI, I would still be hard to replace. I can provide a stable life for the child. Can you? The woman, unwilling to concede, kept repeating one line. But I love him. I'm the mother. In the end, the judge awarded custody of the child to the man. In that moment, I suddenly understood. Love alone is not enough. Ability is the true strength. One's confidence should come from oneself. My parents always say they are my support, but I can't always rely on them. They have already worried about me for half of their lives, and it's time for me to strive. So I decided to improve myself, even though I hadn't studied in many years. It was indeed very challenging for me. After spending twice the time of others, I finally got accepted into a graduate program abroad. The moment I received the admission notice, I neither cried nor laughed. I just felt it was worth it. On the day of enrollment, I walked through the campus with my suitcase. I was looking down at the map when a bouquet of flowers was presented in front of me. I froze for a moment, then looked up to see Gu Sheng, dressed in a suit. He smiled lightly, as if the clouds were relaxed. Congratulations on your admission. I took the flowers and was stunned for a moment, before coming back to my senses. Thank you. Before going abroad to study, I had seen him several times. It was then that I realized we had actually met during our college days, the year he went abroad to study. I just happened to be an exchange student at his school for a few months. I fell in love with you at first sight. I was certain we would meet again in the future. But when I returned to my country, you were already married. That day he stood in front of me, his tone relieved. Chao Sheng, I'm really happy you finally chose to venture out. I look forward to seeing you carve out your own path. Now, holding the flowers in my arms and looking at the person in front of me, I couldn't help but laugh. Gu Sheng said he opened a branch office nearby. So we might see each other often from now on. The future is still long, he said with a smile. I nodded and repeated. The future is still long. I heard news about Song Zi again. 2 years later. It was a long string of voice messages from my best friend, Sheng Sheng. Do you know? Song Zi and Lin Yan are fighting like dogs. Song Zi has been caught cheating multiple times by Lin Yan. And in a fit of rage, Lin Yan exposed all his dirty laundry. Song Zi is no pushover either. He cut off her secondary card immediately. The two of them fight every day. And the whole circle is watching the spectacle. Later, driven to desperation, Lin Yan reported Song Zi's illegal activities under her real name. Song Zi didn't back down either, directly exposing Lin Yan's relatives within the company. Reportedly, there are quite a few of them who have benefited significantly. And they even accused Lin Yan of embezzling company funds. It seems both of them are headed for jail. In any case, it's quite the spectacle. I am not surprised by this. After Lin Yan and Song Zi got married, they became grasshoppers on the same rope. Both held each other's leverage, fully aware of each other's secrets. This kind of relationship is like two bombs tied together. Sooner or later, it will explode. I set my phone aside. A gentle breeze swept by, and a golden leaf perfectly landed on my hand. I looked up. My spirits lifted. I wasn't thinking about their miserable situation, but rather, I can definitely carve out my own space in the world.